everybody. It is great to be here one more time today. My name is Gary Fowler. I'm the CEO, president, and founder of GSD Get Shit Done Venture Studios. It's a pleasure today to be the host of Runday Presents. I have an incredible guest today, Eric Pelletier. He's a serial entrepreneur, an investor. He's been a consultant with companies like Bain, and he's an all-around good guy and knowledgeable about global commerce. And today we're talking about optimizing pricing for startups. So with that, I'd like to introduce my good friend, Eric Pelletier. And again, welcome to Runday AI Presents. Hi, Eric.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so where are you today?
I'm in Paris. It's not a lovely day, but it's, yeah.
But there's great food.
But the food compensates, clearly.
Yeah, Eric, I got to tell you, when I met you the last time over there, and I didn't understand, you said something that was the holy grail for me in terms of cuisine. Well, basically, the entire French experience that they look at their job as a waiter, as a real profession. And I've never heard anybody say that before, right? And it kind of, you understand why they get offended about things. What happens, by the way, if you're over there and you don't like something and you send it back? Can you do that in France or not?
No, you can do that. Actually, people are very used to it for wines. When a wine is corked, so they will send it back, and for food it happens. They are not necessarily very happy with it, but it's normal practice. No service. You saw service is better what most people think it is. So.
Oh, the service is good. I mean, they weren't rude. They're actually, for the most part, nice. Actually, no, it's great. So anyhow, I appreciate that. But let's talk about, why is pricing such a critical aspect of a startup success, and why do a lot of companies? I mean, how do they come up with their pricing models? Is it like close your eyes and throw a dart against the board?
That's for the sophisticated ones. Yeah. It reminds me of the Wall Street Journal thing, monkeys throwing darts and getting better results than most hedge funds.
Yeah.
No, to me, the pricing is very interesting because, as you mentioned, I've been doing strategy consultant for over 40 years. And I've come to realize that one of the most difficult decisions for an executive is pricing. At what level do you price? Actually, if you look at startups, I'm always surprised by the fact that they spend very little time on thinking about pricing. And typically what they do, they think a lot about in their financial model, they look at revenue, they look at cost analysis, very sophisticated, investment they need, super sophisticated, volume, decently sophisticated, pricing, nothing. And actually the pricing is the first interaction of you and the environment. Pricing is in information, and pricing drives your profitability. That's the first thing. It's all the more important that you see that current VCs expect companies to have revenues, and pricing is half of the revenue, so it's definitely worth thinking about it. As I said, it's difficult for all executives. It's even more difficult in startups because you don't have the experience base. You don't have comparables of what we did before and how we can change that. You really are stepping into cold water for the first time. So to me, this is why it's if there's one message to entrepreneurs, is that you need to think really long and hard about your pricing structure.
Yeah, so you look at it, determining the target price and what people are willing to pay. A lot of it is customer discovery, right? You got to go out and conduct interviews, gather feedback. My friend Bob Dorf says you got to get out of the door and you got to talk to people. You got to do surveys, etc. I remember when we were doing the EVA stuff, and Dave and I went down the street in Palo Alto, and we met with about 50 different customers, potential customers. And not only what did they think about the PowerPoint presentation, but what would they pay? It was amazing because they actually would pay more than what we had thought. So instead of $299 a month, it was $699 a month. The price, we would have left money on the table if we didn't go down through and do that. So yeah, for the startups out there, you want to look at those comparable products that are in the market. You don't want to say, come out with a product and say, listen, mine's $15 or $20 or $100 a month, and everybody else is 200. You know what I mean? Or 20. You gotta there's got to be some realism there. So when you on one side you've got the B2B, right? On another side you got the B2C. How is it different from a B2B compared to a B2C perspective? Right.
Okay. First, when you do the pricing, to me there are two prongs. One is what you mentioned. You do customer discovery. You go and talk to people. You will learn a lot. The second thing is you need to do a very detailed value analysis, understanding what is the level of value you provide your customers. Because in essence, pricing is how is it going to work? You want to provide value to these customers, and you want to get some value back, and you share the value. So typically, if you have a drug, that saves lives, you feel entitled to getting lots of money because you're saving lives that are worth it. So the what's really important is doing this value analysis, because this is how you learn. And now, getting directly to your question, the difference between B2B and B2C. B2B, and when you do that analysis in B2B, it's very straightforward. Our service does this, this, this. This is the cost structure of our customer. This is the impact it will have. This is the revenue it's driving up for them. This is part of the cost base for them that's changing. This is lowering their investment. So you do actually a business case, putting yourself in the feet of in the shoes of your customers. So that's B2B approach. Now, people say B2C, you can't do that. It's actually more complicated, because some of the elements of the value you can capture very easily. And then you got to think about, the additional value I bring that is not captured simply. Typically, you see that in luxury goods, in consumer goods. If you have a brand, what is the value of the brand? And this is how you start approaching. What I have
Yeah,
found
so
that
that the value based pricing, right?
yeah,
So if you look at it, you know, there's really several models, right? The cost plus, the value based, the penetration pricing, the premium pricing, right? Start with the higher price to maximize the profits, or the freemium model. How do you know as a startup which one of those to go? I mean, when I started my first company, I did cost plus because I didn't know any better, and I figured, at least I would understand what model that I had. So if you went out, you had $1 invested, you make $2 more. And but how do you do that? It's like, and it's not so easy. You have value braced. Everybody values a product. The perceived value to the customer, but it may or may not be wrong or right. Right? It may be entirely wrong.
yeah. To me, there are a few rules. The first one, once again, it's value analysis. You need to understand the value you provide, and this is where you're going to be anchoring your price. This is the value I provide, so this is the price I should get. Then I look at my cost base, and I want to make sure that this price actually allows me to make a decent profit. Otherwise, there's no point doing it. And then you mentioned penetration pricing. Then you got additional issues, which are, do I want to capture market share? Do I want to establish myself quickly, slowly in the market? So these are the considerations you bring afterwards. And then there are all sorts of tools that you can use to improve your pricing structure. Couple of examples, about junk fees or ancillary revenues, depending your perspective. Um, Actually, this allows you to build some price confusion, meaning people get a facial price, but actually the amount of money that you receive is much higher. So this allows you to enter market where you're not entirely sure of how you can price your product. Um, the second thing, I mean, the oldest marketing ploy in the world is to give your product for free, get people to try it, and hopefully once they've tried it, they're convinced.
Yeah, the
Uh,
freemium model, that, or you get the product and they give you a 90-day free trial, and then or 60-day free trial, and then when it's over, you're addicted to it. Like I
yep,
remember when I first tried Zoom, and they set it up that it was after 45 minutes you were timed out, and it really was awful because the conversations a lot of times would go over 45, and it was embarrassing actually.
yep. No, that's this is the thing that works best. It's established, it's proven. Offer the product, get people addicted. Um, if you're not very ethical, you actually make unsubscribing from the product service difficult, so people are locked in.
Oh,
So
I've had a few of those, by the way. It was
yeah,
so difficult. There was no way that I could find to get out of the payment, and they would up you up for another year,
yep,
and so uh, and I got too busy because it would took days to figure it out, literally days.
yep.
And then they tried to once you tried to sign off, and it was about $2,000 a year actually. Once you tried to sign off, they had all kinds of reasons. They came back with special deals, everything to try to convince you to stay. It was unbelievable, actually.
Yep. Yeah, so it's not nice, but it does validate the fact that get push your product out for free, um, which is complicated in the current environment where VCs want to see revenues, and they will not value the the volume you make if people don't actually pay for it, because paying for it is the ultimate proof that there is interest, obviously.
Yeah. So, you look at it, how important is market research built versus building and iterating on the product? What do you think?
Okay, I have mixed feeling about market research, in the sense that you gave the example we had with Eva. These are rare circumstances. It works in B2B in certain environments. If you do B2C, you go and ask people what's the price point. Well,
Yeah.
I can give you the answer. It's too expensive.
Yeah.
Uh, so you get very limited information. So what you want to do is set up an environment where you can do lots of tests, lots of tests. So you do A/B testing. This offer versus this offer. You do market tests. You test in Phoenix, you test in Boston, you see the results. Um, One thing that's to me fascinating, and it will be music to your ears, is hyper personalization. The If you go back to the roots of economics, the Wealth of Nation, Adam Smith, the invisible hand of the market, which says the best allocation of resource you get is through a marketplace because it establishes prices. So prices are fundamental. And then we saw the Soviet system with centralized pricing that collapsed. It didn't work. Actually, there was a great joke in the Soviet Union. Is There was one reason why the Soviets would never invade Switzerland, because they needed a place to know the real prices. Um, and there's truth to that. Um, so the invisible end of the market really worked when it was difficult to get information. And as you don't get information, you let the market, do test, and this is how you get to the system. This is changing very quickly. With hyper personalization, you actually know each individual customer behavior. And on that prices, you can start pricing very differently because you get the information. So I believe the old paradigm of the invisible hand of the market is literally disappearing. You
Hmm.
get to systems where you know literally every customer in the marketplace,
Hmm.
and on that basis, you can be very, very refined about the price because the price is no, there's a psychological element. It's the price I am willing to pay as a customer.
Well, that makes another thing. What mistakes do founders often make when setting their initial prices? You're right. It's like, too high or too low. Um, and then how do they, lack of flexibility, ignoring what their costs are? Sometimes they don't anticipate the costs and they price it so low they're losing money on each deal.
Yeah.
Overlooking, the competition. What's the competition selling something similar for? And does it, or somebody, why would they uh, buy what you have if it's only 10% better and pay 30% more? I mean, it's like you can't have this irrational exuberance, right? You got to have a situation where you're actually setting it right. And then the other thing is, and I've seen this a lot, is overcomplicating the pricing tiers. They're so complex you can't figure out what the price. There's too many options, and it's confusing to buyers. And they always take the middle one, right? They go if there's three choices, they go to the middle one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the Kahneman's work on behavioral economics shows he has actually a series of rules that are very useful when you do pricing, and one of them is anchor pricing, and steering people into a given level of price. Complexity of pricing. This is something you do when you don't have a clear response to a situation. If your product is or service is really impeccable, you can make the pricing structure very simple. But once again, at the core of all this, it's you really need to understand the value you provide. Um, and this is an iterative process because the more information you get, the better sense you have, and it also helps you refine your USP, your unique selling proposition. Why are people buying this from me? And finally, there's an element which I found very interesting. Is and that answers partly to your question on B2C. It's the notion of attributes, meaning when you present a product to the external world, you give it attributes. Goes faster, goes higher, goes cheaper. All these things. And then you start shaping the marketplace around your attributes. Um, the
Hmm.
standard example, the business school example is, Michelin against Goodyear. Goodyear was the world leader, and they had this old technology, cross-ply tires. Michelin came in with a much more expensive technology, radial tires, but the lifespan of a tire was expanded by 50 or no 100%, so they could price it higher than 20%. But the fact is to be able to do that. So this is true. This is the reality. This is the value you provide. But then you need to tell the marketplace this value is valuable, and you do that by starting to shape the conversation around your attributes. Simple example, you sell a sports car, you want the conversation to be, we do not to 60 in 4 seconds. If you sell an EV, I want, we got super range, 600 miles. So your pricing reflects the attributes that you've understood from your value analysis, and then you get into the iteration, you go to the marketplace, you talk to lots of people, and then you're able to generate a price level.
Well, that's a good point. So, how can startups test different pricing structures without alienating their customers or damaging their brand? How do they do that? So they go out and they're not sure what to charge, right? And they don't want to come out and all of a sudden people say, "Oh, it's too much, right? This doesn't work." How do you do that?
It's okay. Now we have tools. In the old days, it was very complicated. I remember once drinking, my one of my best friend, his father was the ambassador for Iceland, and to class he brought some, some soda, or it looked like soda, transparent, clear, like water. Actually, it turned out to be a test by Coca-Cola to see whether they could sell a Coke that was, looked like soda water.
Really?
Yeah,
How was that? Was it strange?
it was disgusting. It's absolutely, it's the same taste, absolute same taste, but you expect lemonade or something, and you get Coke, and by the time you probably spit it out. So in the old days, you would find a market where you can screw up, do some tests, and nobody knows. So nowadays, we're back to having that logic. You find a location, you find a test market, and you investigate. And I have found clearly in B2B, you talk to your customers directly and you say, "We are running a test. Please work with us, help us understand." And then progressively, you get the level of knowledge you want for to establish your prices.
The so if you look at it, how quickly do startups need to come up with a pricing structure? Door number one. Door number two is what happens when the market shifts? How do they readjust and continually sense and understand what the price should be, right? And do you change it or do you just keep it constant?
Okay, it's actually a complicated question. The first part is simple. It goes back to the value analysis. I mean, this is the strategic. This is the operational value I bring my clients, and it goes back to my USP. And this you need to refine in real time. The more information you get, the more you refine it. And I find that the startups that do well, they're the one constantly adapting, getting this feedback, getting this information, and improve on that basis. With hyper personalization, you're getting so much information that you can really tailor make what you're selling and improving it all the time. To your second question, this actually leads to the notion of strategic pivot. Because if you see that the market is going away from you, and if you, after a conversation, you understand it's related to your price, it raises the fundamental questions about your model.
Mm-hmm.
Fundamental question is, if somebody else provides the same value at a cheaper price, either I can adapt my cost structure, or I'm out of the market. Um,
And what
so
happens when you get into that situation, Eric? Sorry to cut you off, but what happens, you know, if you get, it's like a house, I know when, I built a number of houses and, and I would sell them. And if you cut the prices, people started to look at you differently and then they wouldn't buy, right? They didn't, it was kind of like weird. It was a paradoxical effect because you would cut the price and they wouldn't buy. And then you'd end up having to take it off the market for 6 months and put it back on and you'd be able to sell it. It's really interesting.
yeah, and now it's very difficult with Zillow because
Hmm.
people got the whole history, and they say, what's wrong with the house? They started at 2 mil and now it's 1.2. What's wrong with the house? Is there in a highway, or there's crime, or it raises all these questions. The fact is, it's something we learned from price wars.
Hmm.
When there's a price war, everybody loses. It is very rare that an industry goes back to the pricing level before. So, first rule is you need to be very careful when you lower the price, because that's sending a signal. So you're better off if you feel you need to lower the price because these are the market conditions. Go back to your attributes and start shifting the market on what you communicate and what you deliver, and then you adapt your price structure. So facially, uh, people can't compare to your previous price. It's something I call price confusion. Price confusion is very important in when it's a situation is unstable.
Mhm.
You don't want customers to understand simply the price they're actually paying. So when you feel you're getting to that kind of environment, make your pricing more complicated, which is different from what we discussed, a few minutes ago. But this is where you can start assessing whether you need to pivot from what you were offering before to something new.
Well, I mean, and then you see like some of the candies and those kind of thing. They just start giving you less and charging you the same amount, and then all of a sudden they change the pricing model. Right? It's quite interesting. Listen, Eric, we're coming up to the top of the show. Closing thoughts and how do people get a hold of you?
Clothing thought, it's really about, first of all, startups don't spend enough time thinking about their pricing. That's a really universal rule. Second rule is work on your value analysis for customers. This is essential because out of this generates your USP, it generates your business plan, it generates your marketing thing, and it generates your price. So it's essential. Uh, and third thing is realize it's very difficult. It's difficult for everybody at all levels. Changing a price structure is essentially the most difficult an executive can make. Reaching me, you can reach me at eric.pelletier at gsdvs.com, and we're always willing to talk.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today on Runday Presents. My name is Gary Fowler. I'm your host. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. We'll be back to you again soon with another exciting edition. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Gary.